I'm Robin Stamper. I am the artistic director and the managing director for the Opera Tampa, and the music director for this next show, Gilbert and versus Sullivan. And Melissa?
I'm Melissa Meisner. I'm artistic administrator and resident stage director for Opera Tampa. And I, along with my collaborating partner, Alex Fallhaber, have written this script around some of Gilbert and Sullivan's most famous works about Gilbert and Sullivan's partnership, about their collaboration.
And you're performing. Yeah.
And I'm playing the title role of Sullivan, and my partner Alex is playing Gilbert. And she's sort of a theater background, and I'm sort of a music background, so we thought it was fitting as our collaboration is not at all similar to Gilbert and Sullivan's, but those backgrounds are similar, so we're having fun with that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about that you said that because you're from more of the musical background, and that's what
exactly. Yeah.
I wouldn't say
we don't fight.
Wouldn't say quite so the personalities. It maybe at least on one end, because Gilbert was more outgoing, sometimes brusque, and Sullivan, avoided confrontation. I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit true to form, but I wouldn't call you a receiver.
I think we're exact. Well, we don't know really what it was like to be in the room with these guys, but we do know from some quotes that Gilbert was very dictatorial and authoritarian sort of a director. So not that fun to work with usually.
Well, more than a director. Yeah, he could be brusque with even the wealthy and the patrons, because and powerful people, because he enjoyed making fun of them, with political statements. And Sullivan didn't always like that, because he was trying to, for lack of a better word, trying to suck up to the patrons, to the powerful people. So
and it worked. I mean, he was knighted long before Gilbert was, even though Gilbert was, sort of the leader of their collaboration as far as, creating these clever librettos. I'm sure it was a point of contention for Gilbert, because Sullivan was knighted early on in their collaboration, and thought himself, a grand musician of grand opera. And what you were saying before about the carpet sort of breaking up their relationship at the end of their collaboration, D'Oyly Carte was their business manager, business partner, basically brought them together and produced all their shows, had spent tons of money on.
Yeah, he established the Savoy Theater.
Yeah, he bought it. Yeah, and it was the first public place to be lit with electricity, which is interesting.
So
first public place.
So basically, he wanted to put in this red carpet, and Gilbert had a problem with, how that was budgeted, who was paying for that. That he, his big thing was that he thought that should be totally on D'Oyly's, is out of his.
Well, and we figured out the equivalent of today's money, and it was something like, would have been like $50,000 or something, exorbitant for this carpet. But what we found out was that the reason why Sullivan didn't really balk about it was because Sullivan was trying to get D'Oyly Carte to produce his grand opera. And so he was sucking up to D'Oyly Carte to try to get D'Oyly Carte's support in producing his big, masterwork grand opera that never, I guess he did do an opera, but that Gilbert got upset with Sullivan because Sullivan wasn't mad at D'Oyly Carte like he was.
Well, I think even in the legal dispute, I think Sullivan took D'Oyly's side in it. And it's you bring up this opera, because isn't that the opera that after Gilbert and Sullivan kind of separated, that Gilbert brought some of his friends to come see the premiere, and Sullivan didn't reserve seats for them, so there was yet another dispute. Yes.
Oh wow.
Gilbert showed up, with some of his friends, right, to the premiere of this opera, and Sullivan said he didn't want them there, and he didn't provide any seats for them. So yet another point of contention between the two.
Yeah, so I mean, in the show, we don't go that far. We don't actually make it to their demise. You know, we only go up to, it's basically a span of 8 years. We start sort of Pinafore, which is like 1879, and then Ruddigore is like, I want to say 1884. So it's what is it, like 8 year span, something like that, or 86, something like that.
The glory years, although I don't think Ruddigore was quite as popular as some of the earlier ones.
Mikado was the most popular musical operetta of all time. I mean, that was the biggest show to date when it performed.
Right. I mean, they masked some of the political commentary by dressing these people up, you know, by this supposedly Japanese setting. So, you know, as much
right.
as Gilbert liked to pan the rich and the powerful and the political, you know, it was sort of, it was done through the veil of dressing these people up and having these Japanese references.
But that collaboration on Mikado was sort of what broke their deadlock, if you would call it that, because before then, Gilbert was writing these librettos that were about these fanciful, you know, these things, the magic potion, or any sort of mysterious, you know, unworldly like plots, and Sullivan didn't really want to be associated with that. He wanted more serious work. He wanted to be considered more seriously, and so he didn't think magic potions or enchantments or anything like that was suited to his brilliant music. So
well, you have to understand. I mean, the guy was, you know, he was a prodigy. You know, he studied at the Royal Academy before that. I mean, his father was, you know, this bandmaster. And Sullivan, you know, when he was a kid, like 8 years old, had some sort of command of all of these different instruments, you know, and he won
went to some like crazy
won,
university in Leipzig, like
and he won prizes. I mean, he wrote symphonies and concertos and cantatas and all this serious stuff that, of course, he isn't really that well known for. But that's what his goal was in life.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I mean, Gilbert was so prolific, and I always kind of wondered doing this research, why didn't Sullivan just write it anyway? And he was kind of out partying, you know. He was spending his money on entertaining and traveling and buying racehorses and stuff. But you know, he could have just written the music. You know, he didn't have to have Gilbert or D'Oyly Carte's permission. You know, it just seemed kind of, why didn't he just do what he wanted to do?